Hey, this is Robert with Sigma 3 Survival, and we're out doing some primitive trapping today. And I wanted to show y'all a unique snare set that we use here at Sigma 3. It's going to be a reversed figure 4 deadfall snare. It's going to be used with a counterweight instead of a typical spring snare, such as bending a tree limb over. The reason I like that a whole lot better than a spring snare is because the deadfall never loses its weight and its pulling power, whereas a spring snare, if you get something that's slightly green, and you usually won't find them in the locations that you want to set them at, whereas you can set a deadfall anywhere. But a spring snare will start to lose its snap over time, especially if it has any kind of moisture in it. And the less moisture it has in it, the more likely it is to not want to bend very much as far as you would like, which means you're not going to get enough rise action out of the spring snare. So this is the reason we like to set ours on a deadfall trigger instead. We're located right along a major trailhead right here. There's literally tracks all over the place. I know they're a little hard to see with the camera, but if you were standing here, you'd notice and you'd see, you know, every 2 to 3 inches there's a good sized track. When setting up a deadfall snare like this, you want to set it up off a trail because it's a baited snare, and when animals pass, you know, when they're coming to and fro from their shelter to their feeding areas, they're going to smell that along the way and they're going to be interested in it. So you want to look for track and sign in your area before you set a snare or any kind of primitive trap, because they need to be located in the correct spot in order for you to have good results. We're going to walk around here and find a perfectly suited tree to set up the deadfall, and then we're going to start carving our reverse figure 4. Well, we found a good tree for our reverse figure 4 deadfall, and one of the most important things you need to look for when you're doing this, and one of the main problems that I see in most people's traps, is that when you do some kind of cantilever or some kind of deadfall that's going to be weighted and pull them up, you don't want them to be pulled straight up next to the tree, because what will happen is that animal will be able to grab on and clasp the tree and so forth. So you want it far enough away to where that the animal can't reach it. And, you know, that's going to provide a cleaner death, you know, and you're not going to have a pissed off raccoon, you know, when you come up to the tree who's still hugging on. And another weakness with that is if they can get close to the tree, then they can climb back and follow the line with the rope and then jump off, possibly getting away. So want to make sure that you've got some good space to where you hang your deadfall. The next thing that we need to do is we're going to tie the actual triggers, or the trigger, to the tree. And one of the things I use is just trot line, is one of my main cordages. You just pick it up at Walmart. It's about $1 every 100 foot. It's almost as strong as paracord, and I like it just as much. I think it has a lot more uses, and it's a lot more practical as far as value is concerned. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tie this piece of the trigger to the tree with 2 pieces of rope, okay? And there's a notch cut out here, and then there's also a straight wedge cut up the bottom. Another thing that you want to do is make a little notch to, where your bottom rope is going to hook into so that it doesn't slide. So we're going to set this here. We're going to hook. If you see, there's 2 notches. There's one right here, and then there's another one reversed facing the other one up here, to where it's going to hook into the wedge at the bottom, right? And then there's a small little piece that's going to hook to the deadfall right here, and we're going to hook that up right now. And that's this piece. It's going to literally fit between these 2, just like this. And then when the animal pulls the bait off the end, it lifts, snares him, and pulls him up in the air. Okay, we've got our trap completed for the most part, and I wanted to show y'all how the breakdown of things go. It's very important that you have your deadfall secure up, fairly secure up against something like this so that it doesn't blow in the wind. Anytime you create any kind of deadfall, you want to have something about 3 times the weight that the animal that you're going after. This is a little bit light for an actual trap. I'd probably want a 35 or 45 pound rock to suspend up here, but it's good for demonstration purposes. Now, the way this works is you've got a line that runs all the way down here to your toggle trigger, and this toggle trigger hooks into these 2 notches that you created right here. And what the animal's going to do you put your bait on the end of this stick right here, and when he comes through, he's going to stick his head through the snare, and then he's going to tug on this, and when he tugs on this bar right here, it's going to pull up, the deadfall is going to trigger, and it's going to snare him by the neck and lift him off the ground. I'm gonna go ahead and let this go, and then I'm going to show you how to reset it. So when you've got your snare, you want to make real sure that you got the right distance of rope, because if you don't, funny stuff will happen. So when you grab your toggle trigger here, you hook it into the base at the bottom of the tree, and it's okay if it's a little bit loose. In fact, you like it if it's a little bit loose. That way you've got some more room for adjustment if need be. You hook both of these, or you hook both ends into both sides of these notches, and depending on how sensitive you want it, you're not going to stick it in as far. You're just going to put it on like a little hair trigger. And for your snare, you want to build a little top rail here so that he can't go over your snare, and so that you have a place to hang your snare from. Now, to make your snare, I just do a simple little simple little overhand knot here that you can run your loop through. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And you want to hang the knot on the back side so that it stays stable and you get the best form out of the snare. Like I said, you want to make sure it's not too close to the ground, otherwise he may get his feet in it. And when he comes along, he's going to come through here, he's going to reach for the trigger stick, and he's going to pull it. And when he pulls it, and we're going to make this a little bit more sensitive because we want to make sure when he just barely touches it that it fires. So you're going to put peanut butter, any kind of, if it's a primitive situation, then you're probably going to want to use guts, blood, rendered fat. Basically anything that you can get your hands on that is smells a lot. The smellier the better. If you can find some kind of old rotten carcass, that's perfect. But you just smear it all over this trigger stick right here, and they'll smell it. I guarantee you, even after 3-4 days of letting this sit, if there's actual no meat on it, if you've just rubbed fat on it, they're going to smell it. And when they come along, trigger it, and it lifts them up off the ground. And you just want to make sure that it's high enough off the ground, depending on what kind of animal you're going for, that their hind legs can't touch, because that'll make the death a lot slower. Alright, I wanted to give you all a quick rundown on how to throw a little snare together from just making the rope. It's real simple. You just fold two pieces of rope over on each other. You bend one in half, right? You take this over, bend it, bring it back through the loop, pull it tight, and you want to make sure that there's not too large of a loop there, otherwise the snare will be loose. You want it to, but you also don't want it to be too tight, otherwise it won't close correctly. So that's how you make a simple little snare loop, and then you take the other end and you just feed it back through. And when you're making one, depending on the size of animal, you want about anywhere from about 3.5 to 4.5 feet of rope in order to get a decent sized snare. 3 is kind of your minimum. So another little thing that we need to address is, why do we have all these sticks here? Well, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I talked about animals with primitive traps. You have to catch them by the neck, so you have to figure out a way in order to funnel the creature into the area where his head is going to go first, so that when he gets in, that's the only thing that's caught. You notice I've got about at least a foot, or not a foot, but a fist underneath. We're going for raccoon for this particular kind of trap, and he'll run in through here, or possum. Possum's pretty easy to catch. They're not the smartest. Raccoon's quite a bit smarter than possum. They come through, and then they're going to trip the trigger. So just make sure you build a solid fence, and you can even add a top over it so that they can't get in through the top. And we're gonna trip this one more time just so you can see how it works. So he comes in, he smells the bait, And you might even leave a little something that smells out here, you know, to get him attracted, to make him want to go after this. So he comes in, he pulls the trigger, and it lifts him up off the ground, at least high enough. And like I said, it's very important the amount of weight that you put on your deadfall. This is for demonstration purposes only. For a coon, the average coon weighs about 25 pounds, 20 to 25. Possum, you know, you're looking at 10 to 15 pounds. So if you're going to set a trap like this for these type of animals, you're going to want about a 45-pound deadfall, if not larger. If you can find a good one that you can tie onto correctly, then you probably go, you know, the heavier the better. So anyways, this is Robert with Sigma 3 Survival. Check out our new website, survivalschool.us, and hit us up on Facebook when you get a chance. We appreciate your business, and we look forward to seeing you out here in the field.